joining us today. On behalf of the entire Active Transportation Resource Center team, both at Caltrans and the California Department of Public Health, I want to welcome you all to the latest installment of the Active Transportation Resource Center's On the Move webinar series, Synergy 2023. My name is Victoria Custodio, as Marianne mentioned, and along with my colleagues Marianne Hernandez and Alicia Ramos, we'll be the host team for today's webinar, Older Adult Active Mobility Safety, or as many of you are already referring to it as Safe Routes for Seniors. We have a wonderful webinar planned for you today with some incredible speakers and presentations, but I have to begin with an introduction of the ATRC and our webinar series for those of you who may just be joining in to our series for the first time. The Active Transportation Resource Center is a long-standing Caltrans Active Transportation program project supported by funding from the California Transportation Commission's Active Transportation Program. Caltrans manages the ATRC, and CDPH helps to staff Caltrans ATRC, which provides resources, training, and technical assistance to local agencies across California who are looking to the ATP for funding to build more walk and bike-friendly environments and or provide planning, public engagement, and targeted education and encouragement programs to increase safe walking and bicycling. The overall purpose of our webinar series is to serve our statewide active transportation network with timely and relevant free-to-attendees online trainings that foster innovation and collaboration around active transportation planning, while also highlighting the opportunity for meaningful and impactful active transportation projects. So this is our topic for today, older adult active mobility safety. We are very pleased to present this topic. This is important and timely topic to you today. Our purpose and objectives for you are as follows. You're here to learn about the active transportation needs of older adults, learn about state plans, collaborations, proposed strategies for older adults, for older adult mobility, and learn about the ATP program and its funding and how its funding can and has been applied to support older adult active transportation safety. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the lineup of incredible speakers that we have for today. We're very thankful that they've all agreed to share their expertise today. I'll do a proper introduction of each speaker in advance of each presentation, but this slide shows that we will have both government and non-government perspectives represented on this webinar and how we can all work together to better support older adult active mobility and safety. Okay, and then lastly, we've kind of reduced our next slide on webinar logistics. We're using Zoom for this training. We are asking that you share your questions through the Q&A function. And then following all the presentations, we are going to have a robust question and answer session. And then following all the webinars and all of the presentations, and at the very end of the webinar, we'll ask that you complete a post-webinar attendee survey. We get this question a lot. Will the webinar be recorded and shared? Yes, it will. So I think, to that end, please sit back and just take in all of this wonderful information that we've consolidated for you today. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to ask that Marianne, our host, give sharing rights to our first speaker, Jackie Tompkins. And as that's coming up, I'm going to, as Jackie's pulling up her slides, I'll do a quick introduction. Jackie Tompkins serves as a senior strategist for California's Master Plan for Aging, MPA, at the California Department of Aging, which is the acronym CDA. In this role, she leads the MPA's local engagement activities, including local aging and disability action planning grant program. She provides support for monitoring and reporting on the MPA and coordinates with California's Disability and Aging Community Living Advisory Committee. With a background in kinesiology and public health and a commitment to delivering public services through an equity lens, Jackie earned her PhD in public administration with a dissertation focused on building disability competent public health a disability competent public health workforce. And her title for her presentations is Understanding Older Adult Priorities, California's Master Plan for Aging. Jackie, are you ready?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Before I get started, I'm assuming my slides are up and you can hear me okay?
They look wonderful.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Victoria, for that introduction. As Victoria shared, my name is Jackie Tompkins here at the California Department of Aging. I work specifically to advance our state's master plan for aging. So this is done internally here at the Department of Aging, but also externally with additional partners within our government administration, as well as community-based partners. California's master plan for aging is really a strategic and bold vision for our state. Headed into 2030. It's really aimed at building communities and systems and policies for all ages and all abilities through multi-sector partnerships and person-centered initiatives. So aging is changing here in California, and it's changing the way that we need to operate and deliver services and programs and resources throughout the state. California's older adult population is growing faster than any other age group. And by 2030, nearly 11 million Californians will be considered an older adult. And that's about 1/4 of our state's population. I acknowledge that many of you on this call are individuals who represent community-based organizations or government that work at the local level. So I wanted to put a slide here where you can see that the growth of older adult population is not isolated to a single geographic location within California, but is throughout our entire state. Likewise, in addition to just the sheer number of older adults that we will have in California by the year 2030 and beyond, California's diversity within our state is also increasing. And this growth in numbers, as well as the growth in diversity, presents challenges, but also presents a lot of opportunities. And that's where our state's master plan for aging comes together. It's about proactive, advanced thinking, planning, and action. So the development of actually having a state's master plan for aging took a number of steps, and these steps are highlighted here, but given in the interest in the time, I won't go into detail about each bullet point, but I did want to highlight Governor Newsom's executive order, which called for our California Health and Human Services Agency to convene a cabinet-level work group for aging to advise on the development and release of an MPA. We also had Senate Bill 228, which called upon the California Department of Aging to serve as the convener and the administrator of the MPA, and requires us on an annual basis to submit a report to the legislature to also share our progress, success, and next steps. California's MPA really reflects a whole of government approach in which leaders across our state administration are really taking action to better communicate, coordinate, and transform the services and supports across the entire lifespan. Again, these partners are taking collective action to align and integrate to achieve such systems change. California's initial release of the Master Plan for Aging was launched in January of 2021. So we're coming up on 3 years of having our Master Plan for Aging. The Master Plan for Aging is divided into 5 bold goals. These goals are focused on housing and community, healthcare, inclusion and equity, caregiving and workforce, as well as affordable aging. We also have specific strategies that support each of these goal areas. And even digging deeper, we have specific initiatives that support the goal areas and the strategies. While the California's Master Plan for Aging goals do not change, nor do the strategies, the initiatives that we work on are reevaluated, redefined, and repurposed every 2 years. And this is really important because it allows the Master Plan for Aging to be responsive and nimble to any changing needs that we're seeing currently, and also, again, preparing for the emerging and future needs of older adults, people with disabilities, as well as their caregivers. The development, as well as the continued work on California's Master Plan for Aging, is really stakeholder driven. We spend a significant amount of time listening to community members, listening to subject matter experts to hear about the needs and also hear about the proposed solutions and policies that makes sense within those 5 bold goal areas. For example, last year, before releasing the 23 to 24 MPA initiatives, we held a California for All Ages and Abilities Day of Action event, where we heard again from stakeholders, subject matter experts, and beyond on what initiatives California should tackle in the next 2 years. We continuously engage our stakeholders on a regular basis. As you can see here, we have a number of MPA stakeholder committees. I want to share with all of you that these committee meetings are open to the public. So if there's one that interests you, whether it's more about research, more about elder and disability justice, equity, you are more than welcome, even if you're not a committee, to participate in a public format and share your public comment. One area of interest that you might be interested in connecting on is our Disability and Aging Community Living Advisory Committee. This particular committee does have a transportation subcommittee that is also open to the public as well. And I'm happy to share more information about that for those of you that are interested. But as you can see, we have membership representing more than 250 diverse perspectives coming from subject matter experts, as well as consumers and those with lived experience. What I wanted to kind of just set the stage of today's webinar, and first of all, I'm going to give a shout out to our partners and friends at AARP for their 8 domains of livability that really outlines the interconnectedness of how transportation is critical to independence, community engagement, and the other domains that you see within building healthy and resilient communities. In speaking with a lot of our stakeholders and partners, we hear that transportation is definitely a challenge, not only in terms of accessible transportation, but active transportation, affordable transportation, transportation that is adaptable, acceptable, and available to them. We hear a number of problems and barriers, and I've listed a few here that, again, we hear directly from those with lived experience, older adults, people with disabilities, and their caregivers. And these problems and barriers really extend the gamut in terms of just financial cost, technology limitations, not aware of local services, and maybe there's also inadequate public infrastructure to get to and from and where you want to go. So I see this really as an equity issue. Our solutions need to capture those with the voices and experience of people who need this type of transportation. It requires us to do a lot of information and education to decision makers and other multi-sector partners. And it also requires us to have a commitment to shared goals and solutions, very similar to how our MPA, California's Master Plan for Aging, is a shared vision for all ages and all abilities. What I'm sharing here with you on this screen, specifically related to some transportation-focused initiatives within California's Master Plan for Aging for 23 to 24. Within Goal 1, which is focused on housing and community for all ages and stages, we have Strategy B, Transportation Beyond Cars. And here I've listed a number of initiatives that are focused on transportation. Again, in the interest of time and knowing that I have several additional colleagues on the line, I won't go into a lot of detail because I also know that Abby Jackson from our California Transportation Agency will be talking about a few of these initiatives. But I did want to highlight that they exist, and there's a level of commitment from CDA as well as other agencies to see how we can advance these initiatives within California's Master Plan for Aging. What I also want to share with you that the interest to become ready to support older adults, people with disabilities, and their caregivers extend beyond the state level itself. We are incredibly proud that California became the 8th state in the US to join AARP's network of age-friendly states and communities. And we are equally proud to report that there are a number of other cities, counties that are also providing some leadership in this space. And this is really important because we acknowledge and recognize that a lot of transportation issues are held at the local level. A lot of the services and resources that communities rely on also are held at the local level. So having that local leadership, local partnership that's working with us at the state is incredibly valuable. So again, a lot of states are at, or a lot of cities and communities and counties are at various levels of implementing their own master plans for aging, but the movement is here, and lots of advancements and activities taking place. What I do want to share with you is here at the California Department of Aging, we are also supporting this effort at the local level. We recently released an RFA to award communities funding so they can do their own planning of their own local MPAs. So they can too address issues that are unique to their community, and they can leverage the strengths and assets of their community to improve coordination and integration. So this is a planning grant. We did a round one, and I'll show you on the next slide the 15 grantees that were awarded. And we are actually going to award another set of grantees come this November. So like we did at the state level, the awardees under this particular grant program are also doing community and needs assessments, also connecting with service providers, multi-sector partners to talk about what are their priorities, what are the commitments that they are able to make to have their own local master plan for aging. And it sounds like you all will get these slides, a lot of hyperlinks for you to learn more. On the next slide, these are currently our grantees. I'll leave this up for a moment. The stars represent those who are funded specifically under this grant program. It just started this past July and ends in March 2025. So I'll let that stay on the slide for a moment. And as I shared, we'll also be announcing new additional grantees next month. So hopefully you see your community listed here, and you can have opportunities to coordinate and collaborate. What we also have developed here at the state level and as part of the Master Plan for Aging, acknowledging that, again, a lot of communities have made tremendous advancements in the space, not only within California, but nationwide. So we've also developed a local playbook, and this is a playbook that outlines resources, models, and tips that local organizations can take in order to build out a comprehensive master plan for aging for their local jurisdiction. Again, it's not about starting from scratch, but leveraging and harnessing the shared resources and shared experiences of others. So I wanted to make you all aware of this resource in case it's something that interests you, and you could be, again, connected to a variety of sample action steps that one should take, as well as resources. In closing, I simply wanted to share with you, as a resident of California myself, I'm incredibly proud of the advancements that our state is making to prepare us for 2030 and beyond. California within the nation is leading the charge in developing multi-sector master plans for aging. We're frequently called upon from other states and gladly support them in talking through California's process, lessons learned, successes, challenges, and recommendations. And I'm proud to report that within the United States, we have about 26 other states right now in progress looking to develop their own master plans for aging. So just wanted to give a shout out to California in general, and we see everybody on this call as a member of the MPA movement, and really excited to be able to be a part of this call, introduce myself, introduce the MPA, and I invite you to share any questions that you might have about the Master Plan for Aging, as well as any questions you have for me. And here's my contact information. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Jackie. That was incredibly wonderful. We're going to move right into the next presentation, but I have my own questions for you, Jackie, for our Q&A session. All right, so I think if we can have Abby pull up her slides. I'll start with her bio. All right, Abby Jackson is our next speaker, and she is from the California State Transportation Agency, or CalSTA, and she works as the Senior Climate Change Coordinator. Abby is a professional planner as designated by the American Institute of Certified Planners and has worked in transportation, sustainability, equity, and public health for over a decade. Prior to CalSTA, Abby worked for the California Department of Transportation, Caltrans headquarters, planning and multimodal program, and in the office of the Director's Sustainability Program. So on that note, she's going to speak to us today about CalSTA's role in the Master Plan for Aging, and her presentation is entitled Transportation Beyond Cars in State's Master Plan for Aging. Abby.
Thank you. Thanks so much to the ATRC, Victoria and Marianne for organizing today's event. And thank you to my colleagues in the space for presenting with me and to those out there listening. So today I want to talk to you about CalSTA, our departments, and our role under the Master Plan for Aging Transportation Beyond Cars strategy, how we're implementing that strategy, and a little bit about what it looks like. And then I think my panelists will elaborate more on those outcomes and the rest of the transportation sector here about what that looks like on the ground. We oversee at CalSTA 8 departments and boards, and today I'll primarily discuss actions implemented by Caltrans, CTC, and our Office of Traffic Safety. And many of these 8 departments are working on safety projects or programs that are designed to enhance safety for all road users through infrastructure changes, behavioral changes, with a particular focus on vulnerable road user safety. Oh, I'm behind. Okay, there we go. So as Jackie mentioned, there are key actions in the Master Plan for Aging designed to implement the Transportation Beyond Cars strategy. And for time's sake, I won't list them again. But essentially, we're asking our departments to answer the question, how do we support older adults in getting around safely? And in alignment with the Master Plan for Aging, we're doing that through complete streets that are well connected to robust transit options. And also we're slowing speeds down to reduce fatalities and serious injuries to zero. And to provide these things, we need to leverage our existing federal and state funding to increase active transportation projects and use data and community engagement to inform how we invest. A huge part of designing environments for all ages and abilities is through the approach of complete streets. The idea that a street is complete when all modes can coexist, have access to where people have access to where they need to go and can get around safely, no matter your age, right? So we amplify complete streets through 5 main ways. Policy, we are writing internal policies at our agencies and departments to call for complete streets in our transportation system. Planning, incorporating those projects into our near-term action and long-range visions. We have standards and guidance, how best to create these facilities, and training, teaching our staff across the state how to create them, when to be flexible and when to use contextual design based on perhaps communities that have a lot of older adults in them, and why they're important and meaningful in terms of climate safety and to meet the needs of our dynamic and aging population. We also maintain a lot of facilities, many of which are highways that are actually main streets of our rural communities throughout the state. And we fund complete streets. We help pay for the complete streets through a variety of programs and sources. And I'll try to be brief here, but give you a little summary of these. So our departments administer several programs, not all of them are competitive, that support active transportation and transit. And we've been working hard over the past 2 years since the governor's executive order on N1919 to shift our programs to better support vehicle miles traveled reducing and greenhouse gas emission reducing transportation of investments, which those are transit and complete streets mostly, to address climate change, but also support older adults in getting around safety. So we've got lots of investment in transit going on. The Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, TIRCP, is administered by CalSTA and supports efforts to fund improvements that modernize California's intercity rail, bus, ferry, and rail transit systems, enhance mobility options, improve service, and reduce the overdependence on driving. So more than $2.5 billion in TIRCP funding is going to ongoing public transportation projects that were awarded in January 2003, and more than $690 million to 28 new public transportation projects in disadvantaged communities was awarded in April 2023. So, and then also in July, we're just hitting you over the head with this transit investment, right? $350 million was awarded to 13 projects that eliminate street level rail crossings to make critical safety improvements there. The approved 2023-24 state budget includes $16.1 billion for new transportation infrastructure programs and projects. And that's a considerable level of investment that will position the state to continue pursuing federal funding, which that's one of our strategies in transportation beyond cars, is to better leverage our funding to meet the needs of older adults. And so the approved state budget also provides $5.1 billion for public transit. So $4 billion in that TIRCP program I mentioned, and $1.1 billion in zero emission vehicle transit funding. And then we've also increased funding to our active transportation program, which is our main active transportation funding source. And I'll let Beverly, who's a colleague of mine, tell you about that more later. And we've leveraged programs such as the Solutions for Congested Corridor program, the Trade Corridor Enhancement program, and our SHOP program these are programs that weren't traditionally active transportation supporting programs. And since the release of our climate action plan and the governor's executive order that I mentioned, we've really been able to increase active transportation investment. And for the sake of time, I'll go past this slide and get into something else I've been working on. So now that we have more funding to invest in complete streets, we must invest through an equity and data-driven lens to achieve our safety outcomes in ways that will best serve the needs of today, right? So here's a photo of our interagency staff with our Equity Advisory Committee members. Jackie mentioned DACLAC, and this is something we've started in the transportation space that we're really proud to be a part of, and it's our Equity Advisory Committee. And this was formed as a joint priority of Caltrans, CalSTA, and the CTC. And it's intended to elevate diverse and historically marginalized voices to advise all three agencies how to achieve meaningful outcomes in transportation equity, environmental justice, and equitable economic opportunities, especially as it relates to transportation planning and programming. And this is really starting to help us, actually. For the first time in the Senate Bill 1 programs, the Interagency Equity Advisory Committee participated in the evaluation of projects, helping to ensure that funding decisions provided more equitable outcomes. And you can read more about those equitable outcomes in a forthcoming climate action plan for transportation infrastructure that we're releasing the public draft of next month. And we're at Caltrans, they're developing the Equity Index, which is a tool that will help illuminate spatially transportation-specific priority populations based on an index of demographic, historical, traffic, and health indicators. And so coupled with this meaningful engagement, the use of the Equity Index helps reinforce an equity lens in how and where we invest in complete streets and transit to better respond to the needs of older adults. Our planning, policy, and resources help guide implementation of more complete streets, especially ones designed inclusive of older adults. One thing we're proud of is the Caltrans Director's Policy on Complete Streets, which requires all Caltrans projects to provide comfortable, convenient, and connected complete street facilities for people walking, biking, and taking transit, unless an exception is documented and approved. And this is a significant shift because opting out of complete streets is now the alternative rather than the default. So we're really proud of that change. And we also create standards and guidance, as I mentioned. So we publish, we being the state, publish the Highway Design Manual, which is constantly updated to meet the state of practice. And tearing off of this are our unique design information bulletins, where we offer very specific guidance as needed for complex things such as bike lanes. What's the right bike lane for what situation? So you get this contextual guidance through those bulletins that set minimum expectations for complete streets by place type, roadway context, such as speed and volume. And this is my last slide here. Oh, sorry, keep forgetting to move the slides. This is my last slide here. I won't dwell on the slide since we've got some other practitioners in today's webinar that can give probably better real world examples and are experts in this work. But here are some photos of what our work in the master plan on aging can physically translate to. So we've got signal timing and extended pedestrian cross times. These are called lead times. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. Intersection and roadway design changes such as sidewalks, curb extensions that provide enhanced safety in those high traffic locations. New pedestrian signs and markings that are highly visible and advanced stop and yield markings. And then another thing we have is increased data access for paratransit or transit riders and improved trip planning resources through our California Integrated Mobility Program, Cal ITP. We're doing a lot in that space to better connect older adults to make it much easier to order paratransit for themselves and make sure it's affordable and easy to use no matter where they are in the state. So that's a work in progress, but we're really excited about it. So with that, thank you. There's my contact information right there if you feel free to reach out with questions. Sorry, it's so long, Victoria.
No, that's okay. Our next presenter, we wanted to include him. He told us he had a hard stop at 10:15, so I'm just going to turn it over to David Azevedo of AARP.
Great, thank you so much. Just want to do a quick audio check. Everything sounds good?
You sound great.
Okay, and then of course, my Zoom is being slow, but good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry, good morning to everyone. I'm tuning in from Washington, D.C. today, and so I'm really excited to be able to join you all across the country here. I'm going to share my slides now. And I'm really excited too to be following up on the last two presenters. I think there's a lot of great material that I was going to just kind of talk about, but I think for the interest of time, it's perfect because I can focus really on our AARP principles here. And I really want to kind of just start out, just also a quick introduction. David Azevedo, I'm an associate state director with AARP California. I'm based in our Sacramento State Capitol office. I work on a variety of transportation, livable communities, and similar legislative and policy issues. So really excited to join you today. The other thing too that I wanted to really put out there is this image. And one thing, you know, as we kind of talk about the aging of California, is to really put into place that for that 65 plus, there's a lot of ages, right? And a lot of stages to that aging of different, you know, lifestyles and right, different ways to look at aging. And so I wanted to put this kind of screen here to show that it's not just about, right, although we do need to think about those who need, you know, different types of assistance, walking and moving, right? But there are a lot of older adults too that are, you know, trying to be as active as possible and age as possible. And that's why I'm excited to be following up and to hear kind of these conversations on what are ways that we're making our communities more, you know, healthy and active to encourage a healthy way of aging. And to that kind of point, you know, we have this livable communities vision where we have worked on a variety of livable communities priorities. And I'm glad to hear previous presenters kind of talk about some of them, but really our policy vision, our principles include expanding equitable, accessible, multimodal transportation options. We also believe in more affordable housing for all ages and stages, and also ensuring disaster and extreme weather resiliency. That's a whole other kind of topic, right? But there are some intersections with transportation that we can chat about later. We work to implement this vision in the following ways. We have 3.2 million members in California. We have 38 million nationwide. Again, thanks to our previous panelists who mentioned, we have about 86 counties and communities in California that are part of our network of age-friendly. We also have, of course, the state of California. We were really excited to pass that bill a couple of years ago. And then, of course, we also work at the various state agencies. I serve on a committee with Caltrans on Walk and Bike Technical Advisory Committee. We have one of our volunteers that's actually part of the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. So we work on those kind of capacities, and then we work at the local level too in various cities and communities. Here's kind of a map of where all those are. As you can see, the Bay Area is very well represented. Southern California is very well represented. We are making a push to get more into the middle parts of the state and northern parts of the state. It's exciting to welcome in Roseville, for example, Sonora and Tuolumne County as well. But just kind of goes to show the scale of where these cities and communities and counties are and how they're working to make our populations more age-friendly. As referenced before too, we have this really fast-growing 60-plus population. And, really, we are living in this kind of community, right, where right now we're really built on this car-centric model of living with sprawling suburbs. And, one person kind of put it a couple years ago to me, we really built California for able-bodied 40-year-olds at a median. And that's not going to work for this aging population. We really need to have these walkable, bikeable, public transit-friendly, ADA accessible, affordable, safe, equitable approaches, right? And so that's really what's part of these are the goals of the Livables community vision that we work on. One thing to bring up here that's really exciting. So for about 7 years, AARP has done what's known as the Community Challenge Grants. And that's a national effort, but we are really excited that of the 14,000 projects that we've funded in communities across the country, many of them have been here in California. For example, we've helped install pedestrian safety crosswalks near senior housing, working on reducing price rideshare programs for seniors, and some quick build complete streets projects and bike lanes. One of my favorite kind of examples of these, right, is that we build something in a community and then the community gets used to it. And then we have to take it away, or the folks who create it have to take it away, but then the community misses it and then ends up becoming a permanent thing, right? They work with their local agencies, they work with Caltrans to make it permanent. And that's really the goal of these community challenge grants. And you can find out more on our website. Also too, I'm really glad to hear about our previous president talk about the master plan for aging. AARP was worked with Governor Newsom and various agencies, including CDA. We have a seat, one of the impact committee parts of the MPA, and we're also really glad to have worked with the governor in signing AB 118, which established our state as an age-friendly state. A couple other issues too, wanted to kind of bring up because we've talked about complete streets, but for older adults, this is becoming more and more of a necessity, especially for those who are pedestrians and those who are non-vehicle road users. For example, in LA, in 2021, there was a 20% increase in severe driver-caused pedestrian deaths and injuries. Statewide, there was a 17% increase in that same year. Older adults and children are the most vulnerable road users. And I think that's something to just keep bringing up and up, is that I know these projects can be very difficult, right? It's sometimes community buy-in can be difficult to have. Sometimes the process is very slow to build it and get it completed. But at the end of the day, time is of the essence. And there's a lot of needless carnage that's happening on our streets, and it's disproportionately vulnerable road users like older adults. And that's why AARP has played an active leadership role in advocating for safer streets at a more urgent rate. And one of those things was the Zero Fatalities Task Force, which recommended, since past legislation like AB 43 in 2021, that is lowering speed limits and reforming traffic safety laws across the state. Another thing we work on is we fund things like Ciclavia, so open streets festivals. And what we love about this is that it really, going back to my earlier point, brings out all ages and stages of, it's the 65-year-olds to the 90 and 100-year-olds. One of my favorite users that I see frequently in the Ciclavia in Los Angeles is a woman in her 80s on a skateboard. And so I think that's the kind of vision that we need to really be thinking of, is how do we encourage that lifestyle of using roads in these healthier, safer ways, frankly, than driving. And that's why we're really excited to always support open streets festivals like Ciclavia. For our members that do drive, and again, and I'll talk about this in the next slide, but there's still a lot of older adults who drive and they want to drive. But those who, there's 90% of our members report that driving or having a friend drive is their preferred method of getting around. And so we have a variety of programs that I can talk about, one of which is our driver safety program. And our driver safety program is really unique because it's not only an education program, but there's a benefit at the end. That's not only education benefit, but also you can get some discounts depending on your insurer. We also have a smart driver tech. If you may notice, if you buy a car anytime in the last couple of years, there's all this new technology like lane assist that can sometimes be distracting if you don't know really how to use it right. If you do know how to use it right, it can potentially save lives, save you and those around you. And so that program that we do, Smart Driver Tech, helps people get accommodated and learn about these new technologies. And there's a lot of our members who are really interested in electric vehicles. And so we have various workshops about how to think about being a consumer in the electric vehicle market. And this is where safe driving education with ATRP really comes to bear, is that, 20% of people 65 do not drive, but 33% of those non-drivers do miss doing things because they don't have transportation. And in California, that's becoming more and more, a fact of life in those kind of suburb sprawls where if you can't drive, you don't have a good bus stop, you don't have bike lanes that are safe, you don't have even sidewalks sometimes. And so, how are we meeting the needs for those older adults that are aging in place in those transit-starved, complete street-starved communities to be able to get them to where they need to go? Obviously, when driving is no longer feasible, that really comes to bear, right? Active transportation is a necessity. Public transit of some kind is a necessity, rideshare. And then going on to human services transportation. And why this is becoming more and more of a priority for us, especially next year. We're going to be doing a lot more policy research and advocacy around that at ATRP California. These services that you see here, we've all heard of them, but if you talk to any users, they will say that they do not like it. This is something that is not very consumer friendly. It's very difficult to figure out versus, paperwork and figuring out, can this paratransit actually take me across city lines to where I really need to go? Medical transportation can be a lot of red tape involved. And so this is something that we really want to get involved with. And of course, willing to talk with any of you who are on the call to learn more about ways to collaborate on improving the situation. As we age, more older adults are going to need this, especially those who are living in place and living in these communities that don't have good transportation options. It's an underfunded model. If you look at the transportation budget in California, about 60% of it is for cars. A very small percentage, although growing, thanks so much CalSTA. And for those working on increasing active transportation budgets, that's improving little by little. But HST is something that has just been flatlined and not very, growing, especially in the consumer-friendly kind of increasing piece. And this is kind of one example I like to share with folks, is that there's this spaghetti of HST that I'm not going to put up very long because it gives me a headache looking at it. But this is kind of an idea of just how difficult it is to really navigate the system. And finally, very quickly, we are also closely monitoring the development of self-driving cars and AVs. Our priorities on that, of course, are very similar to our others in transportation space, such as affordability, safety, accessibility, equity, and data security. There's going to be a lot of data that floats between these cars and the users that use them. And I know that I kind of sped read that because unfortunately I do have to get going for another meeting here, but what I will do is I will stop sharing my screen and then put my email in the chat, because I would love to continue the conversation with you. So if you have any questions, would love to follow up with you via email. Always happy to chat. But thank you so much to the team at ATRC and CDPH for having me today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. We wish we could have you for longer, but yes, thanks for sharing your time with us today, and we'll definitely be in touch. And just thank you again from the ATRC. All right, on to his next thing. All right. Wow, we are having there's some great presentations here, a lot of content, a lot of learning happening. Our next presenter is Beverly Newman Burkhardt. And so Beverly, if you can pull up your presentation, we'll keep on moving. I have a bio for you. Beverly Newman Burkhardt is an assistant director, deputy director at the California Transportation Commission, and a program manager with the Active Transportation Program. She's an avid bicyclist and active transportation user. If you don't mind, Beverly, can I just do a quick plug? Our audience today, it probably includes many that aren't familiar with the ATP program. So I just wanted to mention that's the state largest biannual transportation funding program for walking and bicycling transportation projects. It's a huge program, and we are extremely fortunate to have Beverly and her colleagues, Lori Waters and Alika Chengizi at the CTC, managing this incredibly valuable investment program for our state, which is, and because it's really helping to improve and transform the ways in which people of all ages and abilities and backgrounds and means are able to move around safely and healthily and get where they need to go. So Beverly's bio was one sentence, but we wanted to kind of just sing her praises because she's really helped. Lori and Alika have just done tremendous work to help make active transportation more accessible for all ages and abilities. So sorry to take your time. Go ahead.
No, thanks, Victoria. Yeah, I just included a one-sentence bio just to keep it simple, but Victoria filled in all the details. And you can see my screen, right? Like the PowerPoint?
Yes, it looks great.
Okay, perfect. So good morning, everyone. As Victoria said, I'm Beverly Newman Burkhardt. I am a program manager with the Active Transportation Program at the California Transportation Commission. So Victoria already covered a lot of this. The ATP is the only dedicated funding source for active transportation in the state, although I think Abby highlighted some of our other programs at the commission that also include active transportation elements. And so the commission's role in the ATP is to set the overall policy direction of the program through our guidelines process, which we are going through right now, and I'll give a little plug for that at the end of my presentation. And we also manage project selection and make funding recommendations to our commissioners, and then we allocate funding to successful projects. And we work really closely with Caltrans on the ATP, and they manage implementation of the projects that are selected. And then they also work with CDPH to administer the Active Transportation Resource Center, which is funded by the ATP and which hosts webinars like this. So today I'll be giving you just a really quick overview of how we've integrated the concerns of older adults into the ATP. All right, so the ATP was established in 2013 as a competitive program to fund projects that encourage the increased use of walking and biking. And so our main goal in the program is really to increase walking and biking throughout the state. But we also have several other statutory goals, which are listed on the screen. Increasing safety and mobility, advancing greenhouse gas reduction goals, enhancing public health, ensuring that disadvantaged communities share in the benefits of the program. And I highlighted that one on the bottom, providing a broad spectrum of projects that benefit many types of users. So kind of the all ages and abilities focus has always been part of the program. We've always looked for projects that really advance the needs of all ages and abilities, and especially our most vulnerable users, which I think David kind of highlighted in his presentation. Our most vulnerable users are often children and older adults. And so that's something that the program has always kind of highlighted. But last cycle, so in cycle 6, we heard about the master plan for aging that was being developed. And we felt that we could really do more to highlight the needs of older adults in the program in alignment with the Master Plan for Aging. Excuse me. So we worked with the Department of Aging to integrate some more language into our guidelines and into our application. And really where we integrated this language was in the need and safety sections of the application. And so last cycle, which again was cycle 6, was really the first time we've had in our application a real actual, like asking our applicants to really focus on the needs of older adults when they were putting together their application. So in the need question, I just kind of wanted to go through kind of how our applicants kind of tackled this when we kind of gave them this task of like addressing the needs of older adults in their application. So the need question is usually question 2 of the application. If you're familiar with the ATP application, then in this question, you're really describing like the need for the project and how it will help increase walking and biking in the community. And there's kind of 3 main areas where we ask applicants to tackle need, and those are connectivity, mobility, and health. And so we asked applicants to consider the needs of older adults when they were tackling these 3 areas, when they were thinking about connectivity, mobility, and health. We had a lot of applicants talk about, when it comes to connectivity, the types of places that older adults are really trying to connect to. So senior centers and community centers, different types of government services, places of worship, healthcare, housing, places like parks and trails that really allow them to get outside and exercise safely, and just generally places that allow for kind of social inclusion and a sense of community. We also asked them to think about that when they were thinking about mobility, and obviously we all know that older adults generally have more limited mobility than some other areas of the population. So many of them don't have access to cars or can't drive. A lot of them really rely on public transit. And so we had applicants kind of talking about how their projects connect to transit or create safer facilities that will, encourage them to get out and walk in areas that maybe weren't as safe before. Really looking at how projects help with, help keep older adults independent, and kind of how they can encourage them to get out and walk and bike. And in that area, some of our applicants also included non-infrastructure encouragement programs, so kind of programs aimed directly at older adults, things like skills classes, maybe a bike skills class or a walking skills class to help them navigate the streets safely. And then we also asked them to consider the health needs of older adults. So not only, looking at, the obvious health issues, but things like access to healthcare, and then just general well-being and mental health when they were answering this question. And then obviously in the safety question, they were asked to talk about older adults as well. And so I think, again, like as a couple people have talked about today, older adults are often our most vulnerable users out on the streets. So applicants, we're talking about what types of elements they included to protect these most vulnerable users. So these could be, different traffic calming measures that can slow down cars and, encourage older adults to get out there and feel more safe. Facilities with more protection, so maybe off-street bike paths or protected bike lanes may help encourage them to get out there more. Maybe changing light timings if they need more time to cross, or adding things like islands, enhanced lighting, and also ADA compliant curb ramps. And then not on this screen is kind of the community engagement piece, which our applicants have to talk about. So, whenever they're targeting specific populations, in their application. They should also be engaging those populations. So, you know, they're looking at what types of events and where would they hold those events that would encourage older adults to get there. So, you know, workshops or booths at community events, or even door-to-door solicitation of, you know, talking about their needs, or maybe walk and bike audits that really focus on the needs of older adults. You know, how did they get the word out? So just thinking about the types of places where older adults are getting their information. So maybe newspapers, or maybe, you know, putting flyers up in community centers or places of worship. And then also just thinking about accessibility. So just making sure, for example, that their meeting locations are accessible by public transit, so that section of the population can get there. So we did add Safe Routes to Seniors as a project category in the 2023 program. So this was kind of added to encourage our applicants to really think about the needs of older adults while they were putting together their projects. So we received 124 project applications that were designated as Safe Routes for Seniors, and that's 124 out of the 434 applications we received in total for Cycle 6. And then 67 of those projects were funded, and that was out of 242 in total that were funded through the 3 components of the program. So about 28% of the applications that were submitted were Safe Routes to Seniors, and then about 28% of the projects that were funded were Safe Routes for Seniors. Kind of proportionally, they did pretty well. However, a project doesn't need to be a Safe Routes to Seniors project for an applicant to address the needs of older adults. And actually, last year when we were integrating this into the program, we got a question about, you know, why do we have to think about the needs of older adults when we're doing a Safe Routes to School project? And so, again, the most vulnerable road users are often children and older adults, so their needs often overlap. So, I mean, you really would be thinking about their needs while you're doing a Safe Routes to School project, but also older adults are often assisting with caring for children and bringing them to school, or they're the primary caregiver of children. And so, yes, we would want you to think about the needs of older adults if you are doing a Safe Routes to School project. And a lot of the projects, I didn't actually count them, I should have, but a lot of the projects that we received were actually both Safe Routes to School and Safe Routes for Seniors projects, kind of an overlap of those, and included like non-infrastructure programs targeted at both populations. So programs in schools to help children learn about skills for walking and biking, and programs targeted at older adults to help them navigate the streets. Okay, so my presentation was pretty quick, but a quick plug. So we are developing our guidelines for Cycle 7 right now, and so our workshops are ongoing. Our next one is on Halloween next week, and we are going to have a costume contest if you're interested in that as part of the workshop. It's all online, but our schedule for our workshops is available on our website. And then just generally, we expect the call for projects to go out in March for Cycle 7, and then applications will be due in June. And if you are preparing a ATP application for Cycle 7, we are holding virtual site visits right now, and a virtual site visit is basically kind of one-on-one time with commission staff to talk about your proposed project and kind of strategize with us about how you should frame it in different areas of the application. So it could be that you want to talk about how you would talk about older adults in your application, but it could be any other topic that you want to talk to us about in your application. So there's a registration form for that online, but I will also, I think I can paste the link into the chat, right, Victoria?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Okay, so that is it for me. So thank you, Victoria.
That was wonderful, Beverly. And it's a perfect segue for our next presentation team, who I will ask to pull up their slides, and then I'll start with introductions. Actually, I think I was already alerted. Yes, we're going to start with just a chat. So our next presenters are a tag team, Kristen Hockham and Caitlin Scott. So let me introduce Kristen first. Kristen Hockham has 20 years of experience in safe routes to school, active transportation, and public health policy program design and implementation. Kristen's a senior planning associate at Alta Planning and Design, where she leads and advises on the firm's safe routes to school projects. I will mention she was also one of the CDPH's original ATRC non-infrastructure technical assistance team members. So she's deeply aware of our ATRC team and that we're always looking to showcase innovative ATP projects to support increased and safer walking and bicycling for all ages and abilities. To that end, Kristen and her colleague Caitlin are presenting on a special project. Caitlin is a planning associate with Alta Planning and Design and serves on the consulting team to the City of Santa Monica's Older Adult Mobility Safety Project. And so on that note, I will turn it over to Kristen and Caitlin. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much, Victoria. Before I turn the presentation over to Caitlin, I wanted to share a couple of touch points to reinforce the importance of creating physical activities opportunities for older adults through active transportation. First, findings from Dr. Jim Salas of the University of California, San Diego, show that as much as 10% of the global burden of chronic diseases that impact older adults most, can be attributed to physical inactivity, but that inversely, this increasing physical activity opportunities through walking and biking can improve those health outcomes. Second, research from Dr. Katie Chris, also of UCSD, shows that the larger an older adults' life spaces, so for example, how far or how much they move away from their home, the better their health outcomes. And this is even stronger for those who are traveling by active modes. So much of this we know anecdotally, but it's nice to have data and research to back it up. And now Caitlin will present on the Santa Monica Safe Routes for Seniors project.
Thanks, Kristen. Yes, hi, I'm Caitlin Scott, a planning associate at Alta Planning and Design, the consultant hired to lead Santa Monica's Older Adult Mobility Project, or Safe Routes for Seniors. My city partner couldn't be here today, so I'm filling in for him, but I can provide his contact information at the end of this if anyone has questions for the city. And I can also do my best to answer questions on their behalf. I will also do my best to keep this very brief. There's a lot to cover, but I am happy to continue this conversation beyond this webinar today as well, and I'll provide my contact information later. So this project came out of the City of Santa Monica's Department of Transportation, and in particular their mobility division, along with key partners within the city, Big Blue Bus, who's their local transit provider, and the city's Housing and Human Services division. The consultant team was led by Alta with support from a local nonprofit and advocacy organization called Santa Monica Spoke. And we also worked very closely with the city's preeminent senior service provider, Wise and Healthy Aging. So you'll hear me reference those organizations throughout this presentation. So this project, the Active Aging Pilot Program, or Older Adult Mobility Project, stems from the city's Pedestrian Action Plan, which was adopted in 2016 and identified the need for senior-focused transportation programs and infrastructure improvements. Following the adoption of that plan, the City Department of Transportation did a lot of research on safe routes for seniors case studies across the nation, such as the very robust program that exists in New York City. And then they applied for Caltrans Active Transportation Program Cycle 3 grant funding and were awarded $500,000, all of which have gone to the consultant team to implement or design and implement this pilot program. Originally, this project was meant to be a 24-month-long project, but after kicking off untimely in early 2020, it was obviously disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The project was then mostly on pause until 2021 as the city was trying to figure out what was even possible. And thankfully, Caltrans gave us an extension through November of this year, 2023. So we were able to slowly start rebooting the project in spring of 2021. Obviously, COVID-19 caused a lot of issues for everyone. And for this project in particular, we were unsure about whether it would continue to move forward, but it actually ended up giving us some benefits, I would say. We ultimately were able to continue this project because of our ability to shift some early stakeholder engagement and like early parts of this process to virtual meetings or virtual engagement opportunities. It ended up saving us a lot of money and then later allowed us to expand the pilot and do a longer pilot than we originally thought we would be able to do. So it was definitely a challenge, but it ultimately created a little bit more, or at least gave us some benefits later on in the project once we got it going. And just very quickly, I'll not read all of these out since we're short on time. These are available on the website, which I'll share in a little bit. But the goals of the pilot program overall were related to mobility, safety, health, education, equity, and the impact of the pilot overall, all related to seniors in Santa Monica and their ability to get around the city. So let's get into the meat of it. I'm going to spend a little bit of time providing background on what we did leading up to the launch of the pilot program. So at the beginning of the reboot in 2021, we dove right in and started holding interviews with key service providers, with advocates, community representatives, some key partners listed here under stakeholder interviews, because we really wanted to make sure that we were doing our due diligence to learn about Santa Monica senior mobility, their needs, concerns, and start building relationships with partners that could last throughout the duration of this project and beyond. We also convened 4 focus groups with older adults in Santa Monica. 2 of these were held at Wise and Healthy Aging, one of our partners, and 2 were held virtually on Zoom. We had a total of 35 participants, with the majority of them participating in the Zoom meetings. I think was a surprise to all of us, but really great conversations with the stakeholders and with the focus groups. We also convened an advisory committee that was made up of city partners, local nonprofit representatives, and older adult residents of Santa Monica. This advisory committee met throughout the course of the project, and really their role was to provide insight on senior needs, vet different program ideas before we actually launched the pilot, help spread the word and get seniors excited about it, and then weigh in on evaluation and program next steps. Based on these stakeholder interviews, the focus groups, and early advisory committee meetings, we heard 4 common themes regarding transportation challenges faced by seniors, and this information directly fed into our program design. So just very briefly, we heard that finding information about using different modes of transportation is a challenge for older adults, and that there's a strong need for greater education on what technology is available. We heard that cars, scooters, and bikes can make walking in particular feel very unsafe for seniors for a variety of reasons, some listed here. We heard that fear of COVID-19 caused many older adults, I'm sure this is the case elsewhere outside of Santa Monica, but it caused them to avoid going out in public and feel more isolated. We also heard there's a fear of crime, particularly at night and on public transportation. And we heard that a lack of public seating, particularly at like transit stops or other major destinations that seniors like to go to, this makes walking trips very difficult. Another part of shaping the pilot program was to develop branding and think through the appropriate messaging. So we thankfully were able to build on existing branding from related city programs, such as their Vision Zero program, which they call Take Take the Friendly Road. You can kind of see the icons up in the top right and our reference points. We developed a communications plan that included not only communications channels that we could use, but also very specific talking points. We vetted the tone and messaging that we use throughout the program, including calling it active aging instead of safe routes for seniors with partners. We also developed a program approach and program plan, which outlined different program activities, roles and responsibilities of our team and partners, and different metrics that we intended to track throughout the pilot. And finally, we developed a large suite of different materials that we could use throughout the pilot, including a program brochure, event flyer, templates that we could share each month and update with events, template event plans for each individual activity, and a citywide fold-up map with suggested routes, tips for walking, biking, and transit in Santa Monica, and taking transit in Santa Monica, as well as different resources available to people. I wish I could show you a paper fold-up version right now, but I don't have one right in front of me. It turned out pretty cool. Okay. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the actual pilot program and how we implemented it, what we actually did. So the purpose of this pilot approach was to allow the city to test out different types of events and activities before implementing or finding funding for an official, like, long-term program. So this really allowed our team to evolve as the program or the pilot continued, and pivot if we needed to. If something wasn't working well, we could try something different. And this was really great. So right now I'll go through some of these different things that we tested out. So first, communications, very key, as I'm sure we all know here, for any type of program, but especially for the pilot, we had to work very quickly on a compressed timeline to make sure we got the word out. So to do that, we developed a program website, which I will share in the chat right now. I have it geared up. We developed a program website and sort of information hub that features different pilot information, the links to the Eventbrite pages for different events coming up, as well as a resource page that had tips and different links and so on for taking transit, walking, and biking in Santa Monica. We also formed partnerships with local organizations, as I've mentioned, so that we could work with them and use their existing communication channels to help promote the program. So we did a series of email blasts, both from within the city and city departments and existing listservs. The city thankfully has a really robust listserv, and the Department of Transportation has an option to tag seniors. So we were able to share it widely, but also targeted as needed. We also shared through partner listservs. We placed newspaper ads, social media ads on Facebook, social media posts. And then we also, and I think very key, was doing a lot of in-person outreach. So we tabled at different key destinations for seniors, like libraries. This is a photo of me tabling at Wise and Healthy Aging, a senior service center where that has a base of, I think, 1,200 senior members in Santa Monica. And yeah, these were the most successful communication channels that we used. So early on, this is actually technically right before the official launch of the program in January 2023, but in November and December of 2022, we held a series of walk audits. We called it kind of part of a soft launch. It gave us the chance to meet with city staff, staff from partner agencies and organizations, and seniors, and walk through different parts of the city to talk about infrastructure as well as programmatic gaps and needs they had. This is a very small part of this project, but we also are developing some recommendations for improvements for walking and biking facilities as a result of this. So once the program launched, we offered a wide variety of events and activities. The first sort of high-level category is direct support. So this was different types of events where people had the opportunity to receive direct support from pilot program staff. So me, a coworker, city staff. These events included, like I said, tabling and outreach, at different destinations, including partnering with the library on an existing program they have called Tech and Tasks. So we were able to table with Big Blue Bus and offer direct staff support on getting senior transit passes and other types of information about the pilot program. We hosted coffee chats where seniors could sit down with city staff and myself to have a cup of coffee and share concerns and challenges and learn more about the program. And we hosted an appy hour at a local coffee shop where older adults could come sit down with program staff to get one-on-one technology support related to transit planning or trip planning and so on. Next, we offered a series of educational classroom style workshops. So obviously education was a huge part of this pilot overall. And I would say like every event had some element of education, but we did offer a series of classroom or classes, some on transportation technology. So ranging from how to navigate local transit provider web pages to using mobile apps to plan trips and other topics, classes on walking and transit safety and tips for doing that comfortably, and then classes on biking safety, which were led by our partner, Santa Monica Spoke. Our most popular type of activity that we offered was different group outings, including group walks, which often ended in one of the coffee chats that I mentioned, transit outings where we took buses and trains together to a destination like a museum or a park. These outings were meant to actually kind of mimic and support an existing LA Metro program called On the Move Riders Club. On the Move Riders Club has an existing chapter in Santa Monica that hadn't been active since 2019. So we worked with their volunteer senior travel buddies in Santa Monica to help lead the small group outings. And we invited them to join us and weigh in on sort of the future of what that could look like so that we could easily pass the outings to Metro in the future. This is already a self-organized type of event and they needed support. So we were able to connect them with seniors who were interested in participating. And as far as I know, they are still leading outings today, and it's been a few months since the pilot ended. Our team member, Santa Monica Spoke, also led group bike rides to test out different on-street and off-street bikeways. We were fortunate to have a local partner throughout the pilot program, VO, a shared mobility provider who does scooters and these like sit-down scooters that are actually technically Class 2 e-bikes. They provided free of charge Class 2 e-bike rentals and helmets that participants could keep at each bike ride that we hosted, which was awesome. Most of our participants used these devices and didn't have their own bike. So it was a really great way to allow people who maybe wouldn't have shown up otherwise to learn how to bike and get more comfortable using the city's facilities. We also partnered on existing multi-generational rides called Critical Mass that are led by Santa Monica Spoke. It's a take on Critical Mass, if you've heard of that. So this is a great way to encourage seniors to join the kids and families that normally participate those events, or encourage those families to bring their senior family members to participate on group rides throughout the city. Finally, we organized an older adult mobility expo or resource fair that featured 15 local vendors related to transportation and different senior services. So we had like Big Blue Bus, Wise and Healthy Aging, local bike shops, and other related vendors. We in total had around 140 participants throughout the 3-hour event. Some fun photos here. Second slide on this with some more fun photos. So during the expo, we offered some different programming throughout the event, including tours of an actual Big Blue Bus. We found that people getting that hands-on opportunity to like walk through a bus or learn how to use a transit pass or a tap card can be really beneficial and educational. We offered cargo bike rides, and another local nonprofit, Adopt a Walk, led a walk shop where our partner taught seniors about the calisthenics of walking and how to do so that's in a way that's healthy for your body as it ages. Ooh, we're running behind, like very behind on time, I know, as a whole here. So I'm going to try to go through this really quickly. The pilot program ended in July 2023, and then we used a bunch of different tools to evaluate the program. So I'm just going to share some of the different metrics that we have and some of the feedback that we got and some of the next steps. So very quickly, we collected a lot of data throughout the pilot program, such as the number of participants at each event or event type, the monthly e-newsletter metrics, distribution of program materials, and other metrics that are listed here, and we can share out after this. We conducted a post-program survey with the seniors who participated in any of our events. And very briefly, here's some of the highlights that I wanted to share. So the most common way that people heard about the active aging pilot program was through local newspapers. Again, those ads that we placed, emails from either the city of Santa Monica or our partners, and staff doing in-person tabling and outreach. In terms of behavior and experiences and perception, 69% of people who responded to the survey agreed or strongly agreed that they now use transportation options more often. 78% agreed or strongly agreed that they feel like they have better access to goods, services, or recreation. And 83% agreed or strongly agreed that the program helped them connect with people, which I'll touch on in a little bit. And then in terms of future activities and participation, 91% were satisfied or very satisfied with the pilot program as a whole, and 96% saw value in continuing a long-term program, which is lovely. So in addition to surveys, we met with a group of seniors for a pilot program debrief, where we got to do an in-person discussion about some of the same questions we had in that survey. They were meant to be, they were happening simultaneously. We also interviewed key partners such as Big Blue Bus, Wise and Healthy Aging, and others that I've mentioned. We learned so much through these evaluation discussions, in addition to our own lessons learned. So I will just share a few highlights. There's a lot to unpack here, and I'll get to a way that you can learn more after this. But so I just put these in kind of big buckets. One, regarding communications, people wanted more and more and more event reminders. So we had monthly e-newsletter, but then for each event, we had like weekly updates or reminders. People wanted more. They wanted phone calls, maybe weekly recorded calls that let participants know what's coming up. We also heard that it would be good to try out different communication channels to reach a wider range of seniors, working with more newspapers than we were able to work with during the pilot, doing even more Facebook blasts, maybe placing radio PSAs, podcast interviews. Like we heard a lot of really interesting ideas. So just, I guess, point taken there is be creative with how you communicate with seniors. Creating a centralized calendar or tool that makes it really easy to collaborate with partners. I'm sure anyone here who has ever worked on a program of any variety, it's a lot of logistics and a lot of coordination. So finding tools to make that easier and working more smoothly. With regards to our partnerships, we heard suggestions for the city to regularly attend resource fairs that are hosted by partners and share out information about transportation and any senior-focused projects. Just as those opportunities arise, continue to do that. Continue partnerships between Big Blue Bus and the library. So as I mentioned, we were able to table at the library's existing program, Tech and Tasks, and they're very interested in having Big Blue Bus just regularly sharing out information about senior tap cards and other information, because they get so many senior patrons at the library who have questions about that. Continuing to partner with vendors who can expand transportation options for older adults. Like I mentioned, we were fortunate to have a partner who provided e-bikes. So finding other ways to fill in where seniors may not already have access to things like bicycles. And finally, key takeaways related to the actual events and activities. Continue to offer more multi-generational events. I don't have time to get into the positive impacts of building those multi-generational relationships, but it's really, really critical. Offering incentives at all times, whether it's food, giveaways, other fun activities. Our classes were very poorly attended, I would say. We had like 5 people maximum usually. So what we did at some point is pivot to offering mini versions of those classes before our outings, which were very highly attended, usually had closer to 15 to 20 people. Be creative. Offer incentives. offer education regularly, like I just said. It can be integrated into any type of activity, doesn't have to be a standalone event, though that is an important way for some people to learn. Continue to offer the Older Adult Mobility Expo. Basically, everyone we talked to during evaluation said they want that like every year at least. It's a great way to get personal one-on-one interactions with like hyper local vendors in Santa Monica, not just regional vendors like Metro puts on. And then there's a lot here. I'm almost done. This is like one of my last slides. I'm sorry. Yeah, maybe I just won't read through all of these because you'll get to see this at some point yourself. But other key takeaways were bike rides. We were not expecting to be well attended, but lots of people showed up. And then we heard feedback at the end that even more people would have if we had offered rides of varying difficulty. So there were people that already loved riding bikes that felt like they didn't really need to attend the rides that we held because they were like too easy. So expanding those options. And then the final takeaway I will leave you with is that I think we expected after the pandemic, especially that the social aspect of this would be really impactful, but it was like so heartwarming and like wild to see how much of a draw that actually was. Like the educational component was very critical, and I encourage you to pursue that for a Safe Routes to Seniors project. But the social aspect was by far the most meaningful for our participants. They were like exchanging phone numbers and becoming friends, and they're still doing these events self-organized as there's this like lag in what happens next. So older adults often feel left behind. This was a great way, we heard, for people to get outside, meet people, and not use a car, and still learn about their transportation options. So very quickly, what's next? We're working on finalizing an evaluation report where you can get all the nitty-gritty details about our metrics and surveys or survey data. We're also finalizing a program guide, which will have sort of the how-to or our best practices and lessons learned based on the evaluation report and the pilot. These will both be shared publicly probably mid-November, and I can make sure to get those to Victoria so that you can all have access to that. So let's see, the city will be, after this pilot or this project ends, like my contract ends in November. After that, the city will continue to have conversations with their partners about future activities and the sustainability of this program and how they can get it funded. They're working on determining what activities might just fit into existing work programs that they already have, so they don't need to try to find more budget for it. Identifying opportunities to offer to support to existing partner programs. Like I said, Metro's On the Move Riders Club. We were already able to start building up that capacity as part of the pilot. So continuing to support things like that. And finally, finding ways to keep in contact and actually involve all the lovely participants we had in the pilot program as on an ongoing basis. So finding ways to make sure they're involved because they felt a lot of ownership over this. Okay, quickly, there's our contact info. I can paste this. Oops. Yeah, I'll stop there, but I can put these in the chat as well.
That was incredible, Caitlin.
Sorry.
No, I don't apologize. We knew that this webinar was going to be extremely dense. We debated whether or not we wanted to go 2 hours or an hour and a half. Clearly, I chose incorrectly. We could have gone for much longer. It's very rich detail. I want to thank you and thank all of our speakers. Actually, I'm going to take over and just wrap us up because we're not going to have time for our for a robust Q&A at this point. So let me just get into the slideshow mode. And from current slide, we are going to be ending this without a Q&A, but I did want to put in the chat that we are interested in your comments and your feedback and questions. So we'll be sending out our contact information so that you can ask your questions in follow-up. Because we want to see how we did. If you can complete a 3-minute survey after this webinar, we'd be grateful. It gives us a lot of material to go on from here. And then on that note, I just want to thank all of our incredible speakers. You gave us a wealth of information. I think we're all kind of a little saturated from the content, but recognizing that there's so many opportunities, you've really inspired us. And so on behalf of the entire Active Transportation Resource Center, thank you so much. To all of our attendees, thank you for all the good work that you're doing. And we look forward to seeing you on the next Active Transportation webinar. Thank you so much.